Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. Today we are looking at the next tier in the new and upcoming European destroyer line. And this one is the Split. Now, before we get into the history of the ship, if you have a very close look at the flag, you will notice that this is in fact the flag of Austro-Hungary. And if the Poles have been annoyed about this fact, wait what the Yugoslavians got to say. In fact, I'm going to leave it to Baldric to explain the historical impact of this little guff.
I heard that it started when a bloke called Archie Duke shot an ostrich because he was hungry.
Anyway, the Split. This ship was initially designed by, or was initially to be built for the Yugoslavian Navy before the Second World War started. They asked the French to build them something that was large and capable of taking on the Italians. And if there was anything that the French were good at, then it was building things that were large and taking on the Italians, because that's literally what the French destroyers were all about. So they started construction, but then, to everybody's dismay, the Italians invaded, captured the city of Split and the adjacent docks, and continued building the ship. Now, initially, the Split was supposed to be designed by the French, powered by the British, and armed by the Czech. Obviously, that was no longer the case after the Italian took her over, in which case the Italians were planning to arm and power the ship themselves. But then things went sideways, and the Italians sort of surrendered, which annoyed the Germans to no end. So the Italians scuttled the ship, and then the Germans took over and promptly resurfaced the ship again. But then the Germans had run afoul of the Soviets mostly at this time, and scuttled the ship again when they were retreating. At which point the Yugoslavians took over after the whole shebang was done and once again resurfaced the ship. Then, of course, no longer being able to arm her using Czechoslovak equipment, because at this point the Yugoslavians and the Soviets decided to no longer get along with each other. And it took until the British and the Americans decided to chime in and help out with some weapons and propulsion and everything, that the ship was actually completed by the Yugoslavians, who had started the whole affair 20 years earlier, but then a little bit of a war happened. Which means the Split eventually entered service as the flagship of the Yugoslav Navy well after the war, and halfway through the Cold War at this point, and actually made it all the way up to the 1980s when she was eventually scrapped. So a very fascinating little episode on how the ship came to be. But what do we have here in game? Well, first thing, if we are looking, actually let's get the tier 7 in. If we are looking at the Grom, and then we're looking at the Split, you will notice a certain difference in size. Yes, this is a very chunky ship. And if we are going to compare the two, then the first thing we notice is that the ship skills are pretty much the same. We just get an extra engine boost and an extra smoke. The Split, being the chunkier of the two, obviously has significantly more hit points. This is basically a scout cruiser at this point, and has a somewhat sturdier hull. Doesn't quite have the speed and the maneuverability as the Grom does, but it's not that far off, honestly. For an under 4-second turn time for that thing is not terrible. She is outfitted here not with the guns she would have received in reality, but the hypothetical Czech Skoda guns that she would have received if the whole thing had planned out. And yes, these are 140mm guns, so almost cruiser caliber. She does get a 4-second reload, but for the caliber, somewhat disappointing range of only 8.7 kilometers. As is usual with this line, she can only fire high explosive, but don't let that deter you. These are very hard-hitting high explosive shells, the same pattern as we've already established in Tier 7 last time. If you're in a light cruiser, just because the destroyer is firing high explosive at you doesn't mean it's not going to hurt. These guns have a mean punch to them on the HE shells, and obviously a significantly higher fire chance. The torpedoes are kind of a little bit better. than at tier 7. They've got a little bit more damage, a little bit more range, a little bit more speed, and a little bit more chance of flooding. But the 7.2 kilometer range is where it starts getting a little iffy, and I'll tell you why in a second. She does get a better AA, but it's only the small caliber, and she doesn't get a defensive AA, so yeah, she's not going to shoot many planes down, let's be honest here, with a 1.8 kilometer range. Where it gets really, you're going to have to start swallowing something, is the surface detection. A 7 kilometer base surface detection, that is cruiser level almost, and significantly worse than the Grom. And this is where the torpedo range comes in, because you really don't have the margin to do much with your torpedoes. Effectively, at the time when you're in effective torpedo range, you are well and truly spotted. So given that this is technically a Le Fantasque, well, not quite, it's based on one allegedly, but let's have a very quick look. She is not quite as fast as the Le Fantasque, and while the guns are having a better reload than the French, that said, she does not get the rapid reload, so the DPS isn't quite the same. The range is where it gets really tricky, because while the French Le Fantasque is a very, very fast kiter, you just don't have the range on this thing. You have to play within 8 kilometers, which is, for something that has a 7 kilometer base detection, relatively tricky. Maybe that's the Italian heritage, at least for a particular period of time, playing into the game here. So, let's swap that back to tier 8. What are we going to do with this thing? Well, you get the choice between main battery HE damage and fire chance and reload time and traverse. Both not terrible choices. I mean, the 7% fire chance is not going to make a huge difference. Honestly, within the realms of RNG, it's not going to be noticeable. 2% HE damage is nice, but it's not going to be a huge amount either. Especially if you're doing a semi-pen, you're going to end up doing what? Less 5 points extra damage or something, which is it's not bad, but it's not a massive amount. So I personally went with the Elite Gun Operator for faster reload and effectively have completely built this for reload. But you can choose the other one as well. It's not a terrible choice. Either one of them makes some sort of sense. And that also goes into the build. I am sailing with the main battery mod 2. The turrets seem to be reasonably sturdy. I haven't had a huge problem with getting them shot off. And despite the fact that she has only 5 turrets compared to the split 7 turrets, even with the base reload, the Grom 7 turrets, even with the base reload, she's having a higher DPS. So with a reload build, it is a gun mode. Let's be honest about it. Slot 2 obviously into propulsion, slot 3 obviously into concealment, because really it's a hard sell with that high of a base concealment. The camouflage, there is a unique camo. I'm not sure if that was also present at tier 7, but the historical camo, if you want to get it, gives you main battery firing range, which is very much needed, torpedo range, which is very much needed as well, traverse and surface detection. So all in all, very good things. You can get the Golden Age camo, which I'm not sure whose Golden Age this is supposed to be, but it gives hit points, okay. Range and dispersion, okay, take it, and max traverse speed, but no concealment. So I would say, just in terms of stats, and probably also optically, at least from my personal taste, the historical camouflage is the superior one here. Which brings us to the commander. Now, I am still using Jerzy Swirski here, but somebody mentioned that there was a commander, like a special commander, an epic commander that fit relatively well. But I don't have him. I'm still having to chase that up with Wargaming why I don't where that commander is and see that I can get him. But setup is pretty much the same as I would have used on the Grom, just with the addition of the Mistweaver here for the regular commander, that I played in the first game, which was just the level 8 commander. And then obviously for the second round, we have with the legendary commander with the extra radar duration, and the engine overload plus, and the increased torpedo damage. And obviously with the IFHE, simply because you don't have any other choice. That would make any kind of sense. All right. So, very somewhat different from the progression-wise from the previous ship. It's a different ship altogether, I would almost say. The basic style is similar. You are trying to, your torpedoes don't do an awful lot of damage, but you are trying to get flooding, to get floods, and then to try and get permafires or permafloods. And this is sort of where you are expected to get your damage. The bigger issue here is that the comparatively short torpedo range, and with the full setup, we have a 7.5 kilometer torpedo range with a 6 kilometer surface detection. Which is doable. So it's workable. You can stealth torp, but if you don't have the historical camo on, then things are starting to get a little dicey in that regard. So definitely not a stealth boat. It's really more of a gunboat. And with the fast torpedoes, actually quite dangerous against enemy destroyers, but does need to get up close and personal, also because of the with everything we can throw at it, just over 9 kilometer gun range. First round, regular camo, regular consumables, regular commander, and we are playing a 5v5 domination battle against Nagato, Sinop, Gneisenau, Atakau, and an enemy Omono. No destroyers on the enemy team, and I'm the only destroyer on my team, so I have the actual benefit that I can pretty much outspot everything. Which isn't a huge benefit, because stealth torpedoing is not where the strong suit is of this ship, and you will be eventually spotted when you start firing your guns, which you have to, because this is really much a gunboat. Anyhow, I am going to head myself into C Cup, and with the engine boost running and the preheating, she does 42 knots, which is not quite French speed, but is still relatively comfortably fast. And yes, I can't switch that to armor piercing. It's the 140mm HE that we're going to be stuck with. And again, don't let that fool you. Against light, if you're in a light cruiser or destroyer or scout cruiser, these hit really hard. So expect full pens plus the additional fire chance. Anyway, we've got C Cup. D Cup is starting to be captured, and I'm not sure if I can outspot the Omono, to be honest. So I should be able to, but not by a large margin. Okay, I've outspotted Takao. And I am within comfortable range, or somewhat comfortable range, of dropping some torpedoes on it. But it is, yep, there we go. We are detected. It is not much. It is not much. So let's drop some torpedoes on the Takao, and then start trying to set some fires while sailing away in typical French fashion. Because this somewhat plays similar to a French destroyer, just minus the rapid reload. Dispersion can be a little bit questionable. I've got the flood on the Takao. Now the problem, obviously, what I would like to do now is follow that up with permafires. The problem, obviously, is I can't, because there's a Sinop right next to me, and I don't have the gun range to get. So I'm smoking up, trying to get a little bit closer while trying to set a fire on the Sinop. I think that the Takao is backing off, so I can't really follow that up with permafires, unfortunately. And I do have to now get away, because the Sinop is... Okay, that's the fire on the Sinop. And we'll drop some torpedoes. He damage cons to single fire. First torpedo load, Damacon's still going to be active, but hopefully the second one not. So first torpedoes impact, obviously no flood, but now the damage control should be on cooldown, and no flood. But with a 39% flooding chance, that is a little disappointing. That should have been a perma-flood for all intents and purposes. So I'm engine boosting up and trying to get a little closer for setting perma-fires, because again, gun range isn't great. There's the first perma. That should have been a perma-flood and a perma-fire if I had better luck here, but it is what it is. Now, my torpedoes are reloaded. The problem is the Sinop is sailing away from me, and my torpedoes only have a 7 kilometer range. So it's not really that easy to follow up if the enemy doesn't play ball and is actually doing a sensible thing. So once again, I'm smoking up, and that's because the Takao over there is conspicuously heading my way. That's another fire on the Sinop. and he damage controls that, but he is now obviously... Oh no, the Takao isn't actually coming for me, but he might have torpedoes away into my smoke screen. And so we'll get some shots off. I'm just harassing the enemy team here, trying to do what I can. But my team's 2-ship is 1 kill down, and it does not look like we'll be holding C Cup anymore either. Make that 3 ships down, and we've lost C. So again, trying to just to harass Takao. The problem is Takao is not in torpedo range, and I do not want to be in torpedo range of Takao, because if I can torpedo Takao, he can torpedo me right back, and he's got a lot. Yeah, there he comes, and he noticed to load the armor piercing, so he's not stupid. Let's get the engine boost up again and see if we can get some torpedo, land some torpedoes on the Takao. Ow, yep, that's why. Okay, he's slowing down, so second drop where he slowed down, and then we'll try and get a fire going, hopefully for the Damacon, and dodge his return fire. See, that's the problem. If you are fighting within, torpedo range, you are very much... And the flood, yes, there comes the flood, and he will damage control the flood. Now we try to go for the permafire. You are very much in the danger zone, so it's not pretty. Okay, well, I will smoke up now, because that Takao is very dangerous. He will obviously torpedo my smoke screen, but I am trying to get some permafires going, and of course RNG says, no, you're not getting any permafires today, Terry. And the Takao is once again out of torpedo range. Now I can't sit around in the smoke screen while he can't hit me with his guns. He can very much hit me with his torpedoes, and there they come, and that's why I'm not sitting around in the smoke screen, because smoke screens are torpedo magnets. There's the permafire. Okay, that's nice. First torpedo, second torpedo in the rear, in case he stops to dodge the first one, and see if we can get a perma flood going on him. That's 2 permafires. And Takao, but I'm running relatively low on hit points. Permaflood, of course, no permaflood. Would have been too nice then, because then Takao would have been dead. But as it is, I am in a relatively hard fight here with this Takao. We're pretty evenly matched, which isn't a bad thing for a scout cruiser. Can I kill him before he gets me? Come on, come on. Okay, 800 hit points. 1,000, 1,300. Okay, 1,500. That's all the hit points I'm going to get. And this is sort of the. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the capture circle, because I have no way of catching any of the battleships that have Synops taken out. Friendly Synop, that puts the enemy team ahead, and we're going to need decap if we are to win this. We've got a minute. We can do it on points if nobody else dies. Yeah, that's sort of the what you should look like at the end of the battle. No heals left, no smokes left, no engine boosts left, and usually also no radars or no damage controls left either, because this is a working class ship. This is a blue collar ship. You gotta get your sleeves up and get your hands dirty. And wipe the soot off your face, because that ship needs to be played at dangerous distances in order to be effective. So okay, they are taking B, we are taking D. We've got 23 seconds left. I think we can make it on points if that cruiser doesn't die, who is going into a point-blank engagement with the enemy Synop, and that is a terrible idea. But what choice does he have? I don't know if he has one. 708, 709. We can do it on points if the cruiser survives. And by the looks of it, he's gotten around the Synop. So, yep, we do it. Well done, cruiser, whoever you were, for not dying. And with the extra cup that I grabbed there, we have actually made it. You can be quite successful in this destroyer, and I could have gotten a bit more damage if I had been a little bit more lucky with the floods, but it's not a comfortable play. So don't expect to just kind of stay undetected, do perma floods, and it was the New Orleans actually, do perma floods and that sort of thing. In the second round, it's a carrier battle, domination on cage, and we are playing against Lexington, Bismarck, Amagi, Triple Edinburgh, and a Loyang. Triple Edinburgh. and I'm in a destroyer. Well, I'm sort of in a scout cruiser, so this is going to be... I'm expecting to be at least dueling one of those things. So this is going to be a relatively interesting match. Now, if you're not familiar with the Edinburgh, that thing can only fire armor piercing. It's got 150mm armor piercing, it's got smoke screens, and it's got lots of guns. And it's generally considered rather dangerous for destroyers. So we'll see what we can do. Carrier battles, so I'm not expecting to necessarily stay unspotted, which means we're early engine boosting just to get off the ground here. And I'm going to get into C-Cap and keep a very close eye to where the carrier is scouting. Now the carrier should know that A is their safe cap, so generally the carrier should be expected to scout B or C. Carrier is trying to pull fighters against an Indomitable. That's a decent idea, I'd say. And there is what is statistically probably an Edinburgh. Yeah, it's an Edinburgh. Okay, single fire, Damacon. Okay, Damacon's the single fire. Let's see if we can get lucky with a perma flood. If you are seeing a carrier doing things, smoke up, and then we'll blast away. If you're seeing his damage con should be on cooldown now. If you're seeing a carrier doing things like this, then for obvious reasons, try to follow up. There's the perma fire. That's a double perma, not from me, but one of the permas was from me. And there you see the kind of damage that these guns are doing with the IHFE active. And against light cruisers. Now the Edinburgh is not particularly well armored, it is a very light cruiser, and the enemy carrier is coming in, and that means I need to vacate that smoke screen because those torpedo bombers are looking at me funny. There they come, yep, I know. I knew you were following the traces. Cheeky little carrier. Okay, Indomitable has taken down the Edinburgh with his bombers, and that means I can now start playing with the Amagi over here. Enemy Loyang in the middle, and I have some HE spam coming in. Loyang should be a cruiser problem. I've got 2 cruisers behind me, but they're not interested in the destroyer. So we'll see if I can. I might have to do it myself. Where is he? No, it's too far away. Okay, there's the carrier. Let's see if we can annoy that thing a little bit. Hello, Mr. Lexington. Yep, you've seen me, haven't you? Unfortunately, I am not very much in torpedo range. Okay, Amagi is never going to hit me at this range, not if I'm just turning the ship around. And the cruisers are sort of not helpful down here. Carrier comes after me, obviously. Hello, Lexington. Now, generally, I would have tried to dodge the the torpedo bombers by sailing into the torpedoes. Unfortunately, at this point, it would have been better off if I had just kept going, because he did not know how fast I was. But we can heal that back. And there comes the torpedo range again, because the Lexington is simply sailing away and is going to be out of torpedo range by the time the torpedoes get there. Which means, given that the cruisers aren't destroyer hunting, then I'll make myself useful and head over into B-Cap and see if I can do anything about that Loyang over there, while still trying to set a couple more perma fires on the Amagi. I noticed, by the way, that I've so far managed to shoot 2 planes down. So make that 3, okay. Not a huge amount. Okay, Loyang smoking up. Is he? No, he's not. He's actually visible over there. Permafire on the Lexington, potentially. Amagi's still trying to hit me. And with the amount of fire coming in, I am now going to actually smoke up myself. The Loyang has found a cruiser, one of ours. And we have the cap advantage, but we're still behind on points. But the Amagi is about to go down, so he's dead. And the Eindracht has been killed by the Loyang, so much for that then. But has taken down the Loyang in return, which is good. Which means I have now the Edinburghs to play with, and I'm out of smoke screens. The Edinburgh smokes up. Well, I have radar. To be fair, he probably didn't know that. And here you can see the kind of damage that you can do with these guns against the light cruiser again. Because, of course, we are in a battle with 2 Edinburghs. Now, I have carrier support, and this is an Indomitable, so it's a... it's a noob carrier. Even I can play that thing, which means that Edinburgh has now his damage control on cooldown, which means I can sit behind the island, try to be unspotted. It did not work out. I'm probably too far ahead. Yes, I'm too far ahead. And I don't want to stay here. There's Edinburghs coming in, and I don't want to be close up to these things. This one has the damage control, so he gets the torpedoes, and then we'll start gunning down the other one. Try to distract him from the fact that we have used torpedoes just now. And okay, the Edinburgh is actually down. I don't know which one that was, which means my torpedoes once again go to waste. Hello, Mr. Indomitable. You seem to have an Edinburgh problem. Who just shot my rudder off? Those torpedoes are for you. You can have those. Not wasting my smoke on you. You're in a carrier. What you're doing over here is beyond anybody's expectation anyway. Maybe you were trying to cap or something. But I am just going to distract the Edinburgh from the fact that, yes, he starts shooting at me, which means I smoke up, which I expect the Edinburgh is going to smoke up, takes the fire, Damicons has to, because low hit points, and now I'm just going to gun him down. Are you going to smoke up, Edinburgh? You can't see me anymore, you can't see the carrier, and you know that there's a destroyer here, there might be torpedoes in the water. That's a permafire on the Edinburgh. He smokes up. Oh dear, I have radar. I'm sorry. I mean, he couldn't have known that, but that's a very dead Edinburgh. Yep, gunned down by a destroyer. That means we just have the Bismarck remaining, and the carrier is now working on the Bismarck. Well done, the carrier. And we'll see if we can get some permafires and some permafloods going here on that thing. Bismarck is looking... I'm not sure what he's shooting at. It might be the carrier, but it's not looking my way. That's the important bit. And you kind of one thing that you kind of can notice here is that if you leave the lock on, it draws the guns down quite a bit to the belt. So if you're at this range, it's actually better to manual fire and hit the superstructure for full pens rather than using the lock on. But the Bismarck's dead. And we didn't come first because, of course, there's an Indomitable in the game. But well played on the Indomitable. That was nice aggressive gameplay with the carrier. He'd been sitting in a corner. And we managed to... some good teamwork there to get that Edinburgh, to get those Edinburghs killed. So well done. You see the majority of the damage again done with the guns here. And while I've done more damage than the Indomitable and have more team score than the Indomitable, I have only made second place, but only by a very, very shallow margin. So we almost got there. So coming from tier 7, I would say it is some form of progression. Just like the tier 7, it's a workman's destroyer. You got to get your hands dirty in these things. You can't just sit pretty and try to ambush people behind islands with your torpedo spread or similar things. You got to get out there, got to set fires, got to get those guns to work, got to get those torpedoes and floods to work. The concealment makes it a little harder in the ship because this is a bit of a chunky boy. And it's not the same playstyle as a Fantask because you don't really kite away because you don't have the gun range for it, and you don't have the torpedo range either. It plays better if you are playing within mid-range, and you kind of have to know how to dodge shots, how to know where the dangers are, when to use your smoke screens. But the smoke radar combo makes her, and the very punchy guns, makes her a challenge to fight even for a light cruiser or a scout cruiser, because that thing can hurt you right back. And that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time when I'll be featuring the tier 9.